The enigmatic surrender. The vast emptiness of space erupted into chaos as the Galactic Empire's invasion fleet tore through the fabric of reality. Thousands of warships, each a city-sized leviathan of gleaming metal and pulsing energy, emerged from hyperspace at the edges of Earth's solar system. Their arrival sent shockwaves through the delicate orbital instruments humanity had scattered throughout their celestial neighborhood, a cacophony of alarms and error messages flooding back to ground control centers across the globe. Admiral Zax Trull stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 eyes narrowing as he gazed upon the blue-green jewel of a planet that was to be his latest conquest. His leathery skin, the color of bruised storm clouds, rippled with anticipation. This was to be the crowning achievement of his illustrious career, the subjugation of the infamous Earth, home to the obstinate and inexplicably advancing humans. Status report. Zax Trull barked, his translator implant converting the guttural clicks and whistles of his native tongue into the Empire's standard speech. A junior officer, trembling slightly under the weight of the Admiral's attention, responded promptly. "My lord, our fleet has successfully transitioned into the system. No signs of defensive measures or enemy ships detected. Earth's primitive communication networks are alight with panic and confusion." Zax Trull's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smirk among his species. "Excellent. Prepare thee." "Admiral," another officer interrupted, an act that would typically result in severe punishment. But the urgency in the subordinate's voice gave Zax Trull pause. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth's United Government. They're surrendering, sir." A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft hum of equipment and the occasional beep of sensor arrays. Zax Trull's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of deep confusion among his kind. Surrendering, without a single shot fired. The Admiral's voice was a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. He had expected resistance, had prepared for a glorious battle that would cement his legacy. This was unprecedented. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the image of a human female dressed in what Zax Trull assumed were formal diplomatic attire. Her face bore an expression that the Admiral's cultural training identified as calm resignation. "Greetings, Admiral," the human spoke, her voice steady. "I am Secretary General Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Government. On behalf of humanity, I hereby offer our unconditional surrender to the Galactic Empire." Zax Trull's second heart nearly stopped. This had to be a trick, a ploy to lure them into a false sense of security. And yet, as the conversation continued, as terms were discussed, and Earth's leaders showed a willingness to comply with even the most outrageous demands, a creeping unease began to settle over the Admiral. Over the next few days, as the Imperial fleet moved into Earth orbit and began the process of occupation, that unease only grew. The humans were cooperative, too cooperative. There were no hidden weapon caches, no secret military bases, no last-ditch attempts at resistance. Earth's armies laid down their arms without protest, and its leaders provided detailed information on the planet's resources and infrastructure. It was during a routine patrol that the first hint of something amiss occurred. Lieutenant Vex Moore, a promising young officer with a keen eye for detail, was overseeing the inspection of a major human city, New York, if he recalled correctly. As his team moved through the streets, scanning for any signs of rebellious activity, Vex Moore noticed something odd about the humans they encountered. They didn't seem defeated. There was no fear in their eyes, no downtrodden shuffle to their gait that one would expect from a conquered people. Instead, many of them seemed amused. Some even smiled and waved at the Imperial troops as if they were welcome guests rather than invading forces. Vex Moore reported his observations to Admiral Zax Trull, who dismissed them as the lieutenant overthinking things. "They're probably in shock," the Admiral reasoned. "Or perhaps they're simply relieved that their surrender spared them from destruction. Carry on with your duties, Lieutenant." But the strange occurrences didn't stop there. Imperial sensors began picking up anomalous energy readings at the edge of their detection range. Brief flickers of power that defied explanation, appearing for a fraction of a second before vanishing without a trace. The Empire's best technicians were baffled, unable to determine the source or nature of these phantom signals. 5 days into the occupation, a scout ship was dispatched to investigate a series of unusual readings coming from the asteroid belt. The Swift Seeker, crewed by some of the Empire's most experienced scouts, approached a particularly large asteroid that seemed to be the epicenter of the strange energy fluctuations. "This is Scout Leader Krellnus to Eternal Dominion," the ship's captain reported. "We're approaching the target asteroid now. Sensors are—" "Wait, that can't be right." "Report, Krellnus," Admiral Zaxtrahl demanded, leaning forward in his command chair. "What are you seeing?" "Sir, the asteroid. It's hollow, and there's some kind of energy field." "By the Emperor's bones." Evasive maneuver. The transmission cut off abruptly. On the Eternal Dominion's main view screen, a small blip representing the Swift Seeker winked out of existence. There was no explosion, no debris field, nothing to indicate what had happened to the scout ship. It had simply vanished. Admiral Zaxtrahl felt his scales rise in alarm. He barked orders for a full battle alert, convinced that this must be the beginning of Earth's true resistance. But in the hours that followed, there was nothing. No attack came. The humans on the planet below continued their daily lives as if nothing had happened, as cooperative and maddeningly calm as ever. As the first week of occupation drew to a close, the sense of wrongness that had been niggling at the back of Zaxtrahl's mind bloomed into full-blown paranoia. He ordered increased patrols, more stringent security measures, and round-the-clock surveillance of Earth's leaders. But with each passing day, with each new report of humans acting just a little too nonchalant about their conquerors, the Admiral's certainty grew. Earth was hiding something big, and whatever it was, Zaxtrahl had the sinking feeling that by the time the Empire figured it out, it would be too late. In a secret bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Secretary General Elena Rodriguez stood before a group of Earth's top military and scientific minds. The tension in the room was palpable, a stark contrast to the calm facade they presented to their would-be conquerors. "Status report," Elena demanded, her earlier diplomatic demeanor replaced by the sharp focus of a leader at war. A grizzled general stepped forward. "Operation Trojan Horse is proceeding as planned, Madam Secretary. The Empire suspects nothing. Our hidden fleet stands ready, awaiting your command." Elena nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of determination and something else, a fierce pride in human ingenuity and spirit. "Excellent. And Project Prometheus." This time, it was a young scientist who spoke up, barely containing her excitement. "The final tests were successful, ma'am. The technology works even better than we hoped. The Empire won't know what hit them." A grim smile played across Elena's lips. "Then we stay the course. Let them think they've won. Let them grow complacent." She turned to face a massive screen showing a real-time map of Earth and the invading fleet. "Soon, very soon, we'll show the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of." As if on cue, a small alert popped up on the screen. Another Imperial patrol passing near one of their hidden bases. But the secret remained safe, the advanced cloaking technology doing its job flawlessly. The Empire, in its arrogance, had no idea of the storm that was brewing right under their noses. The trap was set, and when it finally sprang, the galaxy would never be the same again. Whispers of rebellion. The Imperial occupation of Earth entered its third week, and unease rippled through the ranks of the alien invaders like an invisible current. What had started as confused whispers among the lower ranks had grown into a persistent buzz of speculation that even the highest-ranking officers couldn't ignore. Sergeant Klinvox huddled with his squad in the shadow of a crumbling human structure, a shopping mall, according to their cultural briefings. His antenna twitched nervously as he recounted his latest patrol to his fellow soldiers. I'm telling you, something's not right. Klenvox insisted, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. We were scanning the ruins of their old military base, and I swear by the Emperor's carapace, I saw something move. Something big. Private Zexela, the youngest of the group, leaned in closer. What do you mean, something? A human. Klenvox shook his head, all four of his eyes darting around as if expecting to be overheard. No, not a human. It was, I don't know how to describe it. Like a shadow, but solid. 1 second it was there, and the next, gone. The others exchanged uneasy glances. They had all experienced similar occurrences, equipment malfunctions that defied explanation, strange readings on their scanners, and an ever-present feeling of being watched. Maybe the humans have some kind of cloaking technology we don't know about, suggested Corporal Drenfar, always the voice of reason in the group. Before anyone could respond, their communicators crackled to life. All units, alert status raised to level 2. Suspected rebel activity in Sector 7. Approach with caution and report any unusual sightings immediately. The squad scrambled to their feet, previous conversation forgotten as they rushed to their assigned positions. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it would only continue to grow. In the heart of London, a city now eerily quiet under imperial curfew, a small group of humans moved silently through the abandoned underground tunnels. They were an odd assortment: a grizzled ex-military officer, a bright-eyed young engineer, a middle-aged scientist with wild hair, and a teenager who moved with the fluid grace of a trained gymnast. "All right, team," whispered Colonel Sarah Hawkins, her voice barely audible over the distant drip of water. "We've got one shot at this. If we can take out their communication relay, it'll buy our people topside the window they need." The young engineer, Raj Patel, hefted a strange-looking device, its surface rippling with an oily sheen that seemed to absorb light. "Don't worry, Colonel. This beauty will fry their systems so thoroughly, they'll think it was a natural disaster." As they approached their target, a makeshift Imperial command post set up in an old station, the teenager, Lily Chen, held up a hand for them to stop. Her eyes, augmented with prototype nano-implants, scanned the area ahead. "2 guards at the entrance," she reported. "But there's something else, some kind of energy field. I've never seen anything like it." Dr. Emilia Vasquez, the scientist, pulled out a tablet-like device and studied it intently. "Fascinating," she murmured. "It appears to be a type of quantum barrier. But how did they? Oh, of course. They're using entangled particles as a detection system. Clever aliens." Colonel Hawkins suppressed a sigh. "That's great, Doc, but can we get past it?" A mischievous grin spread across Dr. Vasquez's face. "Oh, we can do better than that. Raj, remember that little side project we were working on? I think it's time for a field test." Raj's eyes widened in understanding. He reached into his pack and pulled out what looked like a small snow globe filled with swirling mist. "You sure about this? We haven't exactly had time to run a full safety protocol." "No time like the present," Hawkins decided, her tone brooking no argument. "Do it." Raj took a deep breath, said a quick prayer to whatever gods might be listening, and activated the device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reality itself appeared to hiccup. The rebels found themselves standing inside the Imperial command post, surrounded by very surprised-looking aliens. Before the invaders could react, Raj slammed his original device onto the main console. Arcs of ethereal energy danced across the alien technology, which sputtered and died in a cascade of sparks. "Time to go," Hawkins shouted, all pretense of stealth abandoned. As alarms began to blare, the team sprinted back the way they came, or at least, where they thought they had come from. The snow globe device had left them slightly disoriented. They rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Imperial troops. For a frozen moment, both sides stared at each other in shock. Then, chaos erupted. Lily moved with inhuman speed, her augmented reflexes allowing her to close the distance before the aliens could bring their weapons to bear. She danced between them, striking with precision at weak points in their armor that no normal human should have been able to see. Hawkins and Raj provided covering fire with weapons that looked cobbled together from spare parts, but fired bolts of energy that punched through Imperial armor like it was tissue paper. Dr. Vasquez hung back, her fingers flying over her tablet as she worked to disrupt the aliens' communications and sensor systems. In a matter of minutes, it was over. The Imperial squad lay unconscious or groaning on the ground, and the human rebels stood victorious, if a bit winded. "Well," Raj said, breaking the tension with a nervous laugh, "I'd say that was a successful field test." Hawkins allowed herself a small smile. "Indeed. Let's not push our luck, though. Back to base, double time." As they made their escape through the winding tunnels of the underground, none of them noticed the small, spider-like drone that detached itself from the ceiling and scuttled after them. Admiral Zaxtrall stared at the holographic display in disbelief. The London communication relay was offline, and reports of similar outages were coming in from across the planet. But it was the security footage from the London station that truly shook him. He watched as the human rebels seemed to appear out of thin air, their impossible technology making a mockery of the Empire's most advanced security measures. The casual ease with which they defeated an entire squad of Imperial troops sent a chill down his spine. "Impossible," he muttered, his earlier bravado evaporating like mist in the morning sun. "How could they have developed such technology without us knowing? Unless—" A horrifying thought began to take shape in the Admiral's mind. What if the humans had known they were coming? What if this entire invasion had been allowed to happen? But before he could follow that train of thought to its terrifying conclusion, a junior officer burst onto the bridge, panic evident in every line of his body. "Admiral," the officer gasped, "we've lost contact with our outpost on Mars. And sir, the long-range scanners picked up something just before communications cut out. Something big." Zaxtrall felt a sense of dread settle over him like a shroud. "Show me," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of the red planet. For a moment, everything seemed normal. Then, like a leviathan rising from the depths, a massive shape emerged from behind Mars. It was a ship, but like no ship the Admiral had ever seen. It dwarfed even the largest Imperial dreadnoughts, its sleek lines and pulsing energy signature speaking of technology far beyond anything the Empire possessed. As Zaxtrall watched in horror, more ships appeared, a vast armada that had somehow hidden itself from the Empire's best detection systems. And at their head, leading the charge towards Earth and the unsuspecting Imperial fleet, was a vessel that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. The Admiral's third heart nearly stopped as he realized the truth. This was no mere rebellion. This was Earth's counter-invasion, and it was about to begin. The veil lifts. The vast emptiness of space between Earth and Mars erupted into a dazzling display of light and energy as humanity's hidden fleet dropped its cloaking devices. Thousands of ships, ranging from nimble fighters to massive dreadnoughts, shimmered into existence like a mirage solidifying into reality. At their center, a behemoth of a vessel pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its very presence seeming to warp the fabric of space-time around it. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of this flagship, christened the Prometheus, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of anticipation and grim determination. The weight of humanity's future rested on her shoulders, and she felt every ounce of it. All ships reporting ready. "Admiral, her XO, Commander Jackson," reported crisply. "The Imperial fleet hasn't moved to intercept. I think we've genuinely surprised them." Elena allowed herself a small, fierce smile. "Good. Let's not waste the advantage. Commence Operation Thunderbolt." Across the fleet, pilots and crews sprang into action. Ships that had been meticulously hidden and prepared for this moment surged forward, their advanced propulsion systems leaving streaks of blue-white fire against the backdrop of stars. As they closed in on the unsuspecting Imperial Armada, Alina keyed the fleet-wide comm. "This is Admiral Rodriguez to all ships. The moment we've prepared for is finally here. Remember your training. Trust in your tech, and show these invaders exactly what humanity is capable of. Good hunting." Aboard the Imperial flagship, Eternal Dominion, chaos reigned. Alarms blared, officers shouted conflicting orders, and the bridge view screens were alight with the impossible sight of a human fleet that dwarfed their own. Admiral Zaxtrol fought to maintain control, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Status report. How did they hide an entire fleet? Where did these ships come from? A junior officer, his carapace pale with fear, responded shakily. "Unknown, sir. Our long-range sensors are being scrambled by some kind of interference we've never encountered before. We're barely able to get readings on the enemy fleet, let alone target them." Before Zaxtrol could respond, space itself seemed to ripple. A dozen Imperial ships, including 2 of their prize dreadnoughts, simply winked out of existence. No explosions, no debris fields. They were there one moment and gone the next. "By the Emperor's bones," Zaxtrol whispered, his earlier bravado evaporating like mist. "What manner of weapons are these?" Back on the Prometheus, Dr. Amelia Vasquez allowed herself a moment of scientific exultation as she monitored the effects of humanity's most closely guarded technological marvel. "The phase shifters are performing beautifully, Admiral. The targeted Imperial ships have been successfully transported to the pocket dimension. They're intact but completely neutralized." Elena nodded, her focus unwavering. "Excellent. Bring the gravity lance online. Let's show them what else we can do." The Prometheus's bow began to glow with an eerie, purple-tinged light. Energy coalesced into a tight beam that lanced out across space, connecting with one of the larger Imperial cruisers. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, to the horror of the watching Imperial fleet, the cruiser began to crumple in on itself as if crushed by an invisible fist. Aboard an Imperial support ship, Lieutenant Vexmore watched in stunned disbelief as the human fleet tore through their defenses like they were made of paper. Ships he had once thought invincible were being swatted aside or disabled with contemptuous ease. A group of human fighters streaked past his viewpoint, their hulls seeming to shimmer and shift, making targeting them all but impossible. As he watched, they unleashed a swarm of what looked like metallic insects. The swarm enveloped an Imperial destroyer, and to Vexmore's horror, the massive ship began to dissolve before his eyes. "Nanites," he breathed, realization dawning. "They've weaponized nanites on a scale we never thought possible." His horrified musings were cut short as proximity alarms began to blare. A human dreadnought had appeared out of nowhere, phasing through the debris field of a destroyed Imperial ship as if it were no more substantial than a hologram. Vexmore had just enough time to think, so this is how it ends, before his world erupted into blinding light. The battle, if it could even be called that, raged for less than an hour. Imperial ships found their weapons ineffective against the advanced shielding of the human vessels. Missiles passed harmlessly through targets that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Energy weapons were absorbed or redirected, sometimes even turned back against their fires. In contrast, the human fleet moved with a coordination and precision that bordered on precognition. Ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before retaliation could be mounted. The space around Earth became a graveyard of broken Imperial vessels and shattered dreams of conquest. Admiral Zaxtrol, his flagship now crippled and drifting, stared out at the devastation with all 4 of his eyes wide in disbelief. "How?" he muttered, more to himself than to the shell-shocked bridge crew around him. "How could they have hidden this level of technology from us? Our intel, everything we knew about Earth, it was all wrong." A holocom sprang to life in front of him, revealing the face of Admiral Elena Rodriguez. Her expression was stern but not unsympathetic. Admiral Zaxtral, she began, her voice steady and authoritative. Your fleet is defeated. Your ground forces are cut off and surrounded. I invite you to spare what remains of your people and surrender unconditionally. Zaxtral's mandibles worked silently for a moment as he struggled to find words. You planned this all along, didn't you? The surrender, the occupation, it was all a ruse. Elena allowed herself a small, grim smile. We've had a long time to prepare, Admiral. Your Empire's intentions weren't exactly subtle. We knew you were coming, and we decided to let you think you'd won. It made springing our trap that much easier. The Imperial Admiral sagged in his command chair, the full weight of his failure crashing down upon him. The Emperor will have my carapace for this, he muttered. Perhaps, Elena replied, her tone softening slightly. But that's a problem for another day. Right now, I need your answer. Surrender, and we guarantee the safety of your surviving troops. Refuse, and she let the implications hang in the air. Zaxtral looked around at his battered bridge, at the fear and resignation in the eyes of his crew. He thought of the thousands of lives under his command, of the utter futility of continued resistance in the face of humanity's overwhelming technological superiority. With a heavy heart and a voice thick with defeat, he gave the order he never thought he'd utter. All Imperial forces, this is Admiral Zaxtral. Stand down. I repeat, stand down. We surrender. As the order was relayed across what remained of the once mighty invasion fleet, a cheer went up through the human armada. Ships began to power down weapons, and rescue operations commenced to retrieve survivors from the broken Imperial vessels. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Elena Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of relief. The first, crucial phase of humanity's plan had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. But as she gazed out at the star-studded expanse of space, her mind was already turning to the challenges ahead. The Empire had been defeated here, but it was vast, controlling countless worlds across the galaxy. Earth had revealed its hand, demonstrating technology that would send shockwaves through the interstellar community. The real struggle, to secure humanity's place in a suddenly much larger and more complicated universe, was only just beginning. With a deep breath, Elena straightened her uniform and turned to her crew. Well done, everyone. But let's not rest on our laurels. We've won the battle, but the war has only just begun. As if in response to her words, the Prometheus's sensors lit up with new contacts. More Imperial ships, no doubt drawn by the distress calls of their defeated brethren, were entering the system. Round 2 was about to begin. Galactic shockwaves. The news of Earth's stunning victory over the Galactic Empire's invasion force spread across the stars at faster-than-light speeds, carried by desperate Imperial transmissions and gleeful rebel communiques alike. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 different forms of life, aliens gathered around communication devices, their appendages trembling as they absorbed the impossible truth. A backwater planet on the fringes of the galaxy had not only repelled the Empire, but had done so with technology that defied explanation. On Sixterra, the Imperial throne world, Emperor Vox Thuld raged in his inner sanctum, his crystalline form pulsating with furious colors. Impossible. He roared, shattering delicate instruments with the force of his voice. How could primitive apes defeat our mightiest fleet? This must be some sort of trick, a deception. But as more reports flooded in, each more dire than the last, the terrible truth became undeniable. Holograms flickered to life around him, showing the devastation wrought upon his once proud armada. Ships crushed by invisible forces, others simply vanishing into thin air. And most terrifying of all, the massive human vessels that seemed to bend reality itself to their will. The Emperor's most trusted advisor, High Counselor Nix Vera, approached cautiously. Your Radiance, she began, her tone carefully modulated. Perhaps we should consider opening diplomatic channels with these humans, if their technology is as advanced as it appears. Silence. Vox Thuld bellowed, a wave of energy pulsing out from his crystalline form and sending Nyxvera stumbling backward. We do not negotiate with primitives. Prepare our reserves. We will crush these upstart humans with overwhelming force. As the Emperor's orders echoed through the halls of power, a small group of dissident nobles exchanged worried glances. The Empire had ruled for millennia through fear and superior technology. If word of this defeat spread to the subjugated worlds, their fears were well-founded. Across the galaxy, on planets long ground under the Empire's heel, hope began to flourish like flowers after a long winter. On Praxis II, a mining colony on the outer rim, the Volcran slaves toiled in the uranium pits, their tentacled bodies scared by radiation and abuse. Garrix, a young overseer known for his slightly less brutal treatment of the workers, rushed into the mines, his exosuit's speakers barely containing his excitement. "It's true," he shouted, waving a datapad. "The humans defeated an entire Imperial fleet. They have ships that can phase through solid matter, weapons that manipulate gravity itself." The Volcran, normally cowed into silence by generations of oppression, began to stir. Luminescent patterns rippled across their skin, a language of light expressing disbelief, hope, and a growing resolve. One elder, his tentacles gnarled with age, extended a limb towards Garrix's datapad. The overseer, caught up in the moment, handed it over without thinking. The elder's eyes, multifaceted like an insect's, widened as he absorbed the information. In a voice raspy from disuse, he spoke. "The prophecy. The world breakers have come at last." He turned to his fellow Volcran, tendrils quivering with emotion. "Brothers, sisters, it is time. We rise." The uranium pits of Praxis II erupted into chaos as the Volcran, empowered by newfound hope, overwhelmed their Imperial guards. Similar scenes played out across 100 worlds as news of Earth's victory inspired countless rebellions. Back on Earth, Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood before a hastily assembled council of Earth's leaders. The chamber, hidden deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with nervous energy. "The good news," Elena began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion, "is that we've successfully repelled the Imperial invasion force. Our technology performed beyond our wildest expectations, and casualties on our side were minimal." A smattering of applause filled the room, quickly silenced by Elena's raised hand. "However, we've now revealed our hand to the galaxy at large. The element of surprise is gone, and we must prepare for the Empire's retaliation. They won't take this defeat lightly." Dr. Emilia Vasquez, still flushed with the success of her inventions, stepped forward. "But surely they can't stand against our phase shifters, our gravity lenses. We could end this war before it truly begins." Elena shook her head grimly. "It's not that simple, Doctor. Yes, our technology gives us an edge, but the Empire controls vast resources. They'll adapt, find countermeasures. We need to press our advantage now, before they can regroup." The council erupted into heated debate. Some argued for immediate, aggressive expansion, striking at the heart of the Empire while they were still reeling. Others counseled caution, worried about overextending their still limited forces. As the arguments raged, a junior officer burst into the chamber, her face pale. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from all over the galaxy. Alien races, dozens of them, asking for our help against the Empire." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, in one fell swoop, had become a beacon of hope for oppressed species across the stars. It was an opportunity, and a tremendous responsibility. Elena's mind raced, weighing options and potential consequences. Finally, she spoke, her voice filled with resolve. "We can't ignore these calls for help. Humanity has always stood against tyranny, and we won't stop now just because the scale has changed. But we need to be smart about this." She turned to the assembled leaders. "I propose a two-pronged strategy. First, we establish a defensive perimeter around Earth and our immediate stellar neighborhood. We can't help anyone if we leave our homeworld vulnerable. Nods of agreement met this sensible precaution. Elena continued. Second, we send out small, elite strike teams to key worlds that have requested our aid. These teams will bring examples of our technology, train local resistance fighters, and gather intelligence on Imperial strongholds. The plan was met with cautious approval, but one counselor raised a concerned hand. And what of the Empire itself? Surely they're marshaling their forces for a counterattack even as we speak. Elena's expression hardened. That's why I'll be leading our main fleet on a series of precision strikes against critical Imperial targets. We'll disrupt their supply lines, destroy their shipyards, and keep them off balance while our allies gather strength. As the Council hammered out the details of humanity's first foray into galactic politics, Elena's thoughts turned to the challenges ahead. They had won a great victory, but the real test was yet to come. Could humanity maintain its technological edge? Would their intervention bring freedom to the oppressed, or merely replace one tyranny with another? The next few months would be crucial. Humanity would have to navigate a complex web of alien alliances, stay one step ahead of Imperial countermeasures, and somehow hold onto its principles in the face of total war. As if sensing her thoughts, Dr. Vasquez approached, her earlier bravado tempered by the weight of their situation. "We've started a firestorm, haven't we?" she asked quietly. Elena nodded, her gaze distant. "We have. And now we have to make sure it burns the right things." She straightened, squaring her shoulders. "Come on, Doctor. We have a galaxy to liberate." As they left the council chamber, alerts began to flash on nearby screens. Imperial reinforcements, a fleet 3 times the size of the first, had been detected entering the outer solar system. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, the Empire would not underestimate humanity's resolve or ingenuity. The galaxy held its breath, watching to see if the upstart humans could truly challenge the dominion of an empire that had reigned for millennia. The board was set, the pieces in motion, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, ancient races long thought extinct stirred in their slumber, awakened by the tremors of a conflict that threatened to reshape the very fabric of galactic civilization. A new dawn for the galaxy. The vast expanse of space surrounding the galactic core blazed with the light of 1,000 suns, each a silent witness to the final desperate stand of the once mighty empire. A year had passed since Earth's shocking defeat of the initial invasion force, a year of relentless conflict that had reshaped the political landscape of the galaxy. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, her eyes fixed on the tactical display before her. The combined fleets of Earth and its newfound allies, a coalition of former Imperial subjects and long-hidden resistance movements, formed a gleaming arc of defiance against the last remnants of Imperial might. "Status report," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Commander Jackson, his uniform bearing the scars of a dozen battles, responded crisply. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The Volcran fleet has taken up position on our left flank, and the Zorax battle spheres are in place on our right. The Empire's remaining dreadnoughts are holding position around Emperor Voxful's fortress world." Elena nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "And our secret weapon." Dr. Emilia Vasquez stepped forward, dark circles under her eyes testament to sleepless nights of frantic work. "The phase shift bomb is ready, Admiral. If our calculations are correct, it should create a localized subspace rift, large enough to swallow the Imperial Palace and its immediate defenses." "Good," Elena replied. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Open a channel to the Imperial flagship. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the crystalline form of Emperor Voxful. Even through the transmission, his aura of menace was palpable. "So the upstart apes have come to die at last," the Emperor sneered, his voice a discordant symphony of grinding crystals. Elena met his gaze unflinchingly. "This is your final chance, Voxful. Surrender unconditionally, and we guarantee the safety of your people. Continue this madness, and we'll have no choice but to end your reign permanently." The Emperor's laughter was like shattering glass. "You dare threaten me? I am eternal. I am the living embodiment of the Empire's might. Your parlor tricks and alien allies cannot hope to." His words were cut short as the space behind him erupted in chaos. Explosions blossomed across the Imperial defenses, and ships began to wink out of existence. Elena allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Emperor. Our parlor tricks are more than capable of ending this war. That display was just a small taste of what we can do. Stand down, or the next phase shift will be centered on your palace." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty passed across Voxthal's crystalline features. "You're bluffing. No weapon could penetrate our defenses so easily." In response, Elena nodded to Dr. Vasquez. The scientist tapped a series of commands into her console, and a shimmering sphere of energy coalesced around a nearby asteroid. In the blink of an eye, the massive rock simply vanished, leaving behind nothing but empty space. The Emperor's multifaceted eyes widened in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "Your empire is finished, Voxthal." Elena pressed. "But it doesn't have to end in more bloodshed. Surrender now, and we can build a new future together. One of cooperation and mutual respect, rather than tyranny and fear." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, with a sound like shattering crystal, Voxthal slumped in his throne. "Very well," he said, his voice devoid of its former arrogance. I surrender." A cheer went up across the Allied fleet as the news spread. Ships began to power down weapons, and celebrations erupted on 100 worlds. The long nightmare of Imperial rule was over. But for Elena and her inner circle, the work was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on a neutral world to hammer out the framework for a new galactic order. The Great Hall buzzed with a cacophony of languages and the rustle of appendages as species that had once been mortal enemies now sat side by side, united in their desire for a lasting peace. Elena stood at the podium, her uniform exchanged for formal diplomatic attire. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "The Empire's fall has left a power vacuum, one that we must fill not with more conflict, but with understanding and cooperation." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "Each of us brings unique strengths and perspectives to this table. The Volcran's mastery of quantum communications, the Zorax's unparalleled skill in ecological engineering, humanity's phase-shift technology. These are but a few examples of what we can achieve when we work together." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Elena continued, her voice growing passionate. "But with this power comes great responsibility. We must ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. No single species can be allowed to dominate as the Empire did. We must create a system of checks and balances, a true federation of equals." As Elena outlined her vision for a galactic federation, Dr. Vasquez watched from the sidelines, a thoughtful expression on her face. She leaned over to Commander Jackson, whispering, "It's amazing, isn't it? A year ago, we were afraid of being conquered. Now we're helping to reshape the entire galaxy." Jackson nodded, his eyes never leaving the podium. "It's a heavy burden. I just hope we're up to the task." Their conversation was interrupted as a commotion broke out near the back of the hall. A group of delegates was clustered around a being unlike any they had seen before. Tall, ethereal, with skin that seemed to shimmer with starlight. The strange being glided forward, the crowd parting before it. As it approached the podium, Elena fell silent, a mixture of awe and apprehension on her face. "Greetings, children of the younger races," the being spoke, its voice resonating in the minds of all present rather than through the air. "I am Zinvale, last of the precursors. We have watched your struggles from afar, waiting for the day when you would be ready to join us among the stars." A shocked silence fell over the assembly. The precursors were thought to be nothing more than legend, an ancient race that had supposedly seeded life throughout the galaxy before vanishing eons ago. Zinvale continued, a hint of approval in its mental voice. "You have shown great courage and wisdom in overthrowing the Empire and seeking to build a more just galactic society. But your journey is far from over. There are threats lurking in the dark spaces between the stars, dangers that even we could not overcome alone." Alina, recovering her composure, stepped forward. "We would be honored to learn from you, Zinvale. What dangers do you speak of?" The precursor's form shimmered, and suddenly the hall was filled with holographic images of terrifying creatures and world-shattering events. "The Devourers," Zinvale explained, "a force of cosmic destruction that nearly wiped out our civilization. We managed to drive them back, but at great cost. Now, after millions of years, they stir once more." As the assembled delegates absorbed this shocking news, Alina's mind raced. They had just finished one war, and now an even greater threat loomed on the horizon. But as she looked around at the united faces of so many different species, she felt a surge of hope. "We faced the Empire together," she said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "And together, we will face this new challenge. The Galactic Federation will stand as a bulwark against the darkness, a beacon of hope for all sentient life." Zinvale nodded, a shimmer of approval rippling through its form. "Then let this be the dawn of a new age. An age of unity, of discovery, and of courage in the face of the unknown." As the delegates cheered and the first treaties of the new federation were signed, Alina gazed out at the star-filled sky visible through the hall's transparent dome. The galaxy stretched out before them, full of wonders and dangers in equal measure. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and though the path ahead was fraught with peril, Alina knew that they would face it as they had faced every challenge, with ingenuity, determination, and an unwavering belief in the potential of all sentient beings to build a better future together. The dawn of a new galactic era had arrived, and humanity stood ready to meet it head-on.